We have an active shooter. We have an active shooter inside the warehouse.
Welcome to Active Shooter, a podcast that covers the whys, the hows, and the aftermath of active shooter and mass casualty events.
They have an active shooter in the building. A second call says they are being attacked.
I've been shot. 16910 means we got shots fired. 4:15 ASL. Route 291 sounded like an automatic firearm.
Active shooter, reports of an active shooter,
mass casualty incidents.
Thank you for listening.
You are listening to Active Shooter, a podcast that may contain adult themes, explicit language, and graphic depictions of violence. Portions of this show may be traumatic for those under 18. Listener discretion is advised.
The fatal campus shooting in Alabama, but this time the violent spree did not involve a student targeting classmates. No, this time the alleged gunman was a member of the faculty, one who may have just faced a professional setback. And this time, the suspect is a woman.
It is a commonly known fact that most active shooter incidents are done by men. In fact, the FBI database of active shooter incidents states that between 2000 and 2016, a mere 6 out of 160 active shooter incidents were committed by women. The database defines an active shooter situation as when, quote, an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In today's episode, we will discuss a shooter who was a highly educated woman with a family of her own when she decided to take the lives of 3 of her colleagues. Active Shooter the podcast is a High Five Holly production, and I'm your host, JT. If you've listened to our prior episodes, you know that the Active Shooter podcast team has taken the no notoriety pledge, and we will not be sharing the real name of the shooters that we cover. We will be giving the shooters a pseudonym and refer to them by that name throughout the episode. This will help in clearing up any confusion in the story, while remaining true to our pledge in not naming the shooter by their actual name. In today's episode, we will refer to the shooter as Nicole. February 12th, 2010, was like any other day for Nicole's students at the University of Alabama, Huntsville campus. Nicole was teaching 2 classes that day, anatomy and neuroscience. As students sat at their desks waiting for Nicole to arrive, they noticed something odd. It was after the time class was supposed to start, and Nicole was never late. Not even a minute. A few minutes later, Nicole finally showed up. She seemed frantic and scatterbrained, even more so than usual. Students also noticed that she had a canvas handbag with her, which seemed odd since she's never carried a bag or purse with her before. It wasn't until later that day the students realized the reason she was carrying a bag with her. As Nicole started her lecture, students noticed that their professor was all over the place, not sticking to the topic she was trying to teach, and going off on wild tangents that had nothing to do with the subject. After making it through both of her classes, Nicole headed to meeting room 369, which was located on the 3rd floor of the Shelby Center for Science and Technology on the school's campus. She was supposed to meet with other biology professors to discuss the upcoming semester. The conference room was very small, narrow, and had no windows. The other 12 or so professors sat around the oval table discussing various topics. Some of her co-workers thought it was odd that Nicole was even there. They weren't expecting her to show because they knew Nicole didn't receive tenure and wouldn't be teaching next semester.
She wasn't necessarily expected to be at that meeting, and there was some surprise that she was there. So in a way, she's sitting there watching the world kind of move on without her.
Tenure is defined as when a professor or teacher is granted permanent employment at a university or school after a certain number of years. It usually protects the person from being fired without cause.
It's the battle for tenure. Only somebody who's been intimately involved with that fight understands. The tough, long, hard battle.
About 45 minutes into the meeting, Nicole pulled a Ruger P95 handgun from the canvas bag. She stood up and started shooting her coworkers on the opposite side of the oval table, striking each of them in the head, execution style. The professors on the same side of the table as her dove under for cover. Nicole was standing in front of the door, which was the only exit, and the room was so small the others had nowhere to go except under the table. One professor, Deborah Moriarty, who was a confidant of Nicole at one point in time, tried to reason with her, pleading with her to please not shoot her. She just became a grandmother. She begged Nicole to please think of her new grandson. Nicole, unfazed by Deborah's pleas, aimed at Deborah's head and pulled the trigger. Knowing she was going to die, she closed her eyes and prepared for the worst. Deborah didn't hear a gunshot, though. All she heard was a click. She opened her eyes and saw Nicole looking at the gun, puzzled, not knowing what happened to her firearm. Deborah didn't know if the gun ran out of bullets or if it jammed, but she knew she needed to do something, and fast. She started crawling backwards out the doorway, causing Nicole to follow her. Nicole continued to point the firearm at Deborah and pull the trigger. Click. Click. Click.
She stepped out into the hall and pointed the gun at me and pulled the trigger, and it clicked, and it clicked again.
As soon as Deborah had Nicole outside of the conference room, she decided to make a run for it, and threw herself back into the conference room and quickly locked the door. The other professors in the room began to stack what little furniture there was, thereby barricading the door so Nicole couldn't get back in. Nicole killed 3 professors instantly while wounding 3 others. They all began to frantically call 911.
Sometimes shortly before 4 p.m., a call was made from the Shelby Center for Science and Technology to the Huntsville Police Department. University Police, Huntsville Police Department responded, secured the building, and they found the victims.
Nicole hadn't thought this far ahead in her plan and didn't know what to do. She decided to walk down to a bathroom on the 2nd floor and clean up a bit. She washed the gun off in the sink and put it, along with her pinstripe blazer, which was covered in blood, in the trash can, and covered both with toilet paper. Nicole then walked into a laboratory class that was in session and asked a student if she could borrow his cell phone to call her husband to come pick her up, which was something he frequently did. When her husband answered, Nicole said 2 words to him: "I'm done," then hung up the phone. Nicole knew that police would be arriving soon and was hoping that her husband would pick her up before they showed up. She walked down to the 1st floor and made her way towards the rear of the building and exited through a loading dock. What Nicole didn't know was that there were 2 police officers stationed right outside.
The moment that we came across her, we detained her because we felt like she may have some involvement in it.
Since the police had a description of the alleged shooter, as well as a name, they knew that Nicole was the one they were looking for. She was immediately placed into handcuffs and escorted to a waiting patrol car. Her husband showed up at the school just in time to see his handcuffed wife being put into the back seat.
I pulled up to pick her up to go home. And I thought somebody had gone crazy at the school.
As the officer put Nicole into the vehicle, she began speaking to him, telling him that it wasn't her, and that they were still alive.
This didn't happen. There's no way.
What about the people who died?
There's no way they're still alive.
Email blasts and phone calls were sent out to all students and faculty, advising them there was an active shooter on campus and to shelter in place.
They told us that there had been a campus shooting and just to remain indoors.
The Huntsville SWAT team quickly swarmed the building, while a few members escorted EMTs to help the wounded. After Nicole was arrested, the SWAT team and other police officers spread out to search the building for any additional shooters or possible victims.
I was sitting up in my dorm room, which is right next to the building that it occurred in, and look outside my window and there's cop cars all over the place.
The entire building quickly became a crime scene. In less than 1 minute, Nicole killed 3 of her fellow professors, wounding 3 more.
No one knew, exactly how many people were shot, how many people got injured, if anyone was killed yet. So no one knew what was going on. It was chaos.
Dr. Gopi Padilla was born on September 14th, 1957 in India. He is the youngest of 4 boys and always had a knack for all things science. Dr. Padilla studied biology, soil microbiology, and plant pathology at Narjuna University, where he earned a first-class degree and a master's degree. In 1982, he decided to move to the United States and attend Louisiana State University. While at LSU, he obtained another master's degree in plant pathology in 1983. In 1987, Dr. Padilla earned a PhD in molecular biology from Indiana State University. After earning his PhD, he went on to Ohio State University, where he did postdoctoral research, before taking a position at Michigan Technological University in 1990. At Michigan Tech, he joined the Department of Biological Sciences as an assistant professor. In 2002, he was elected chair of the Department of Biological Sciences at University of Alabama, Huntsville. Dr. Padilla also had a passion for culture and the arts. He died from a bullet that went through his chin, into his chest, and exited through his back. Dr. Padilla leaves behind a wife named Vani and 2 daughters, Bindu and Anila. Dr. Maria Ragland Davis was born on June 1, 1959, and died from a gunshot wound to the head. She was 50 years old. Dr. Davis was born in Detroit, Michigan. She received her undergraduate degree in chemical engineering from the University of Michigan and a master's degree in chemical engineering from North Carolina State University. Furthering her education, she completed a doctorate in biochemistry and plant biology. In the year 2000, she joined the team at University of Alabama, Huntsville. Her co-workers later said that Dr. Davis was one of the most promising faculty members and researchers, and that the word fear was not in her vocabulary. She taught cell and developmental biology at the university. Dr. Davis was also known for her optimism, and she encouraged everyone to think outside the box, which was one of her favorite phrases, and she used it often. Her brother later commented that she had a take-charge personality. He stated that she loved teaching, research, and her family, but she was also a little bit eccentric. She was stubborn and persistent, but had a sweet disposition and was approachable. What many people didn't know was that Dr. Davis was a breast cancer survivor. Dr. Adriel D. Johnson Sr. was killed from a gunshot wound to the head. He was 52 years old. Dr. Johnson was born on June 22, 1957 in Alabama, where he eventually attended the Chambliss Children's House Elementary School and Tuskegee Institute High School. In 1979, he received a Bachelor of Arts degree from Washington University. In 1981, he received his Master of Science degree from Tennessee Technological University.